You went to Africa.
The Horn of Africa was a particularly big hotbed. What they had figured out was that Somalia, being the lawless land that it is, was the perfect place to not only recruit from, but to ship foreign fighters from various countries around Africa and the Middle East down to train them, prepare them, give them skills like IED building and marksmanship and whatever, and then put them on boats, ship them up to Yemen, and then via Yemen back into the Middle East to go kill Americans wherever. We had, intelligence collection in various countries throughout the Horn, but I was one of two guys from my organization. We had two guys from Dev Group, two guys from the Air Force equivalent of those two organizations, so a combat controller and a pararescue guy, two guys from another Army organization based out of Virginia, and then a couple of Ranger Recon Detachment operators. So I was lucky in that the SEALs that I ended up with were guys that were a part of the exchange back early on in the war.
Okay.
That McChrystal had directed, and we were all kind of at the same points in our career. So while they were moving into the clandestine element of their organization, I was doing the same. So when we met in Africa, it wasn't the first time we'd ever seen each other. So it made for a very easy, comfortable environment where we could do some high-level stuff together without a whole bunch of time to train together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Limited assets, we didn't have much. We had no ISR, we had no Predators, we had no close air support, we had no AC-130. We had a signal intelligence platform, so we had one airframe that flew overhead that listened to real-time voice calls. We started getting some traffic in Mombasa, Kenya, and lo and behold, they got a hit on probably two of the most wanted guys in the world, which were a guy named Haroon Fazul and a guy named Saleh Nabhan, which were responsible for the U.S. Embassy bombings in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in 1993. And so long-time targets, been on the list for a long time. This is 2007, so it's a long time later. But what they were involved in was basically that foreign fighter trafficking into and out of southern Somalia. So we came up with a hasty plan. We had been working, the CIA over the years leading up to that had developed a relationship with some folks in Somalia. And one of them was the Puntland Defense Force. The PDF there was led by a guy that was basically a former Somali warlord. So his name was Bashir. And so we linked up with Bashir, handful of his guys, and we basically tried to figure out what we were going to do about this boat moving north. And we were kind of hoping and praying that we would pick them up again and get a good fix on their location, or that they would stop and they would give us some course of action. Well, about the time that all this is going on, we're flying a plane up the coast of Somalia, trying to gather some whatever we can, and they catch them on the phone. And they had, so High Sea State off the Horn, which is a notoriously bad shipping lane in terms of sea conditions, rough seas had forced them aground on the coast and actually damaged their ship. It was in the town of Bargal, and they got in a shootout with locals in the town. They stole a bunch of supplies like water and food from the townspeople, and then they moved up into the hills just outside of town. So they couldn't get back on their boat because their boat was damaged. All we got, so now we're getting real-time human intelligence, all we got out of the townspeople was that, hey, these guys are all foreigners, they're all from other places, and they're heavily armed, they have a bunch of guns, there's a bunch of them. And we don't understand why they're here. This is the conversation that's going on. So, the three of us that were in Basaso, it was me, a guy from Dev, and a CCT guy. We're like, well, we got to do something. We have an opportunity to get, number 2 and number 3 most wanted dudes on the planet. We got to do something. So we came up with a plan with Bashir and the PDF guys that we were going to fly and get as close to Bargal as we could, stop about 2 hours west of the town, and then he was going to coordinate for some folks in the area to come pick us up, and then we were going to drive into Bargal and figure out what we were going to do with this. So that all went down. When we were on the way out of town, Brady and I, the CCT guy and I, were in one vehicle, and Phil, the Navy guy, was in the other vehicle, and we're with Somalis. And we're driving down the road, and this vehicle comes screaming down the road behind us, high rate of speed, dirt spilling out everywhere. and we're freaking out. Like, none of the guys in the car speak English. The only person that does is Bashir. He doesn't know what's going on, and this car is chasing us down. So they're honking their horn, and our guys pull over, and we're like, what are you doing? So we're ready to go, thinking this is somebody that spotted us coming out of town. And they pull up, stop, get out. It's guys that they know. What it was they had forgot their big bags of cot, and they didn't want to leave without them. They forgot their drugs.
Yeah.
So, and that was typical working with Somalis. You know, about midday, they would start chewing cot. Mid-afternoon, they were useless. So if you didn't get it done in the morning, it wasn't happening. But, yeah, so that was a little high-stress moment leading up to that. But we ended up getting on a plane, flying out. His guys showed up. So it was the three of us, Bashir, and a handful of his loyalists. And we drove into Bargal. On the way into Bargal, we were kind of working on a hasty plan, and we had nothing, you know, so we just kind of worked with what we knew to be true, what we had hard facts on, and we kind of backwards planned from there. So, you know, Brady, the CCT guy, was like, look, man, we need a way to get out of here. Like, what are our options? Like, we got a fixed wing plane in Djibouti that could come get us. We got our guys that are coordinating there, and we've got some PJs that were stationed there. So we've got some options, but it's like 5 hours away. And he's like, well, there's a Russian airfield that's south of the city that I saw on the map, old dirt strip. He's like, why don't we stop on the way into town and survey that airfield and make sure we can land that bird there just in case. Perfect. Great idea. So we stopped, surveyed the airfield. It was probably the quickest airfield survey a CCT guy has ever done, but he felt good enough that we could land a plane on this dirt strip. So we left from there. Phil, the Navy guy's like, hey man, there's a Navy destroyer off the coast. He's like, why don't we call that destroyer? It was the USS Chaffee. And Brady's like, cool. He's like, I can do that. Like, we'll call him in the blind and be like, hey, you got U.S. forces on the ground. He's like, I can pre-plan some targets. You know, they got deck guns. Like, if we get in trouble, we've got some naval gunfire. Awesome. Great. And they're like, well, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, well, I think we just basically need to get there with our dudes. We need to set up a patrol base between the town and wherever we think they are, because we don't have an exact on their location. I said, it's 110 degrees outside. Let's bring the aircraft down so they can hear it. Let's bring the boat in over the horizon line so they can see a U.S. naval warship off the coast and set up a patrol base out of small arms range, but where they can see us. I'm like, there's nowhere to go. They're thousands of miles in any direction from the next town through the desert. It's 110 degrees outside. Their boat's damaged. I go, they're going to start being heat casualties soon. We'll just wait it out. So we pull in. Everybody's good with it. The three of us feel good about it. You know, it's basically the three of us and 8 or 10 Somalis. So to our knowledge, there's 18 to 20 some of them, and they got bell feds and a bunch of other stuff. We didn't have shit. And in the early part of the day, it's hot and we're dying. And Bashir's like, we need to go get these guys. And we're like, nah, man, we can't do it. And again, he's the only one that speaks English. He's like, no, we need to go do it. And he keeps pressing. And like, we can't figure out why. And he keeps pressing. Still can't. Like, Bashir, just calm down, man. And what it was is he didn't understand. He's like, he can see the boat too. We didn't say anything about it. He can hear the plane. And he's like, at one point, he's like, why don't you just drop a bomb on them? And we're like, 1, we don't know exactly where they are. 2, the battery died on their phone. They're not talking anymore. 3, like, we haven't worked a whole lot together. So, like, this is a dangerous thing. Like, we just need to wait these guys out. Well, he loses patience. So it's probably 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the three of us are, like, just trying to figure out, like, what's next. Because we can't just shoot naval gunfire. Like, we basically have to get in an engagement to do anything. And we're in a country we're not supposed to be in. We got no air assets, no CAS, no nothing. So Bashir walks over and he goes, I'm taking my guys and I'm going over the hill to kill them. And I go, what? And he goes, you can come with me if you want, unless you're scared. I'm like, all right, Bashir, you know, straight face. I'm like, I get it. Like, we need to do something. I understand. I go, can you give us a minute? Let us talk and come up with a little hasty plan here. And I'll be right back with you. He says, fine. So he walks off to his guys, and I turn around where he can't see me, and I start laughing. And Phil and Brady are like, what are you laughing at? And I go, you guys aren't going to believe this. I was like, but when you go through Robin Sage in the Q course, you have a G chief, a guerrilla warlord guy that's pretending that's his thing, and he has his little G's. And I go, and they act like complete assholes, and they do things like this. And when you're in the Q course, you're like, no way this ever happened. Anyway, so we end up pulling Bashir in, and we explained to him that basically we're going to do a movement to contact, you know, bounding overwatch. And we ended up putting the gun teams on either side. not so much because of the tactics, but because we were afraid about having them too close to us.
Yeah.
And what would happen. So we had a gun team to our right flank, a gun team to our left flank. The three of us were staying together no matter what. And then we had a couple other Somalis and Bashir with us. And so we start this bounding overwatch. We'd move a gun team up, move another gun team up, and so on and so on. And so we crest over the first hill. About the time we get over the first hill, headed up to the larger ridge, we hear a belt fed open up. And it's to the north of us. And they're shooting at the guys on our right flank. Can't tell exactly where it's coming from, but we can tell that that's the only ones that they can see. So we continue to move up to gain the high ground on this ridgeline to try to get a better fix on their position. About the time we get up there, we realize where they are, not too far from our position. We engage those guys, but then all hell breaks loose. So in the draw behind the ridge that we're on, we're taking heavy fire. Ineffective, we're behind like this ridge of rocks. So we got a couple of dudes that have been dealt with on the north side, but they have shot and wounded both of the guys in our gun team to our right flank. About the time that we're trying to figure out exactly where they are below us. Now, we got no grenades. We've got nothing, like I said.
Shit.
Small arms. About that time, bullets come. I'm here, Phil and Bashir over there. The two Somalis are a little bit further to his left, and then the gun team is beyond them. And then Brady's on my right, and then the wounded gun team on his right. Bashir is like just standing out in the open, gets shot 3 times. So Phil grabs him, pulls him down behind cover, and is like packing like Kerlex and gauze in his holes. Brady and I both turn, and I move to a piece of cover between me and the guys on the left flank. Yell to Brady, hey, move to me, move to me, move to me. Suppressive fire, Brady moves to me. Now it's the two of us. The two Somalis that are up here with us are now cowering down behind the rocks and terrified, like not returning fire, not anything. And I think, well, at least they're not going to shoot us, right? They're there. The gun team between us and them are now in a shootout with the guys. So half the guys that are coming up the ridge are shooting at the two Somalis on our left flank. The other half of the guys are shooting at Brady and I. Brady and I ended up shooting rounds between a bunch of rocks and just ricocheting a bunch of rounds into the dudes, and they would peel out to one side or the other, and, you know, we kind of dealt with it. But anyway, in the midst of that portion, we ended up dealing with all those guys, but they had wounded not just Bashir, but the other 2 guys. So now I've got 5 wounded Somalis, including the only one that speaks English.
Shit.
And the 3 of us. So everybody on the ridge is down. I'm not worried about, it doesn't seem to be, we have good visibility that we've got any more threat coming up the ridge line above or below, but we're still getting hammered from down below. And I'm like, I don't know what our move is from here. Like, the 3 of us were like, we don't have a lot of options here. And Brady goes, how about some naval gunfire? And so, you know, the 3 of us kind of looked at each other and we're like, all right, yeah, we can do this. The boat was ready and aware, and they were jacked up. Like, they didn't even know we were there.
I'll bet they were fucking pumped.
We called them in the blind. It was a really funny, like, 20-minute conversation before we had gotten into that position, and you could hear them in the background, like, yeah, like they knew they were getting ready to get some. And so Brady is on the horn with the boat. I have a handheld satellite radio because I'm like, we can't do this unless I call troops in contact over the SATCOM. Like, they got to know we've been engaged, that we didn't just shoot naval gunfire into a country we're not supposed to be into. And so, so Brady's talking to the boat, calling in naval gunfire. I'm calling in troops in contact over SATCOM. I said that we had wounded, but I didn't say who, because I was worried that if it was just Somalis, we weren't going to get the same reaction, which I don't know if that was the right call or the wrong call, but it was the call that I made at the time. And so we ended up grabbing up as many of the Somalis as we could, and we started pulling back off the ridge. Right about that time, rounds come overhead. I think Brady had him shoot like 24 rounds or something off the deck guns into the valley and walked them up and down as we pulled back off the ridge. So we get back down to our patrol base. There's no more fire coming from the hills other than, you know, the smoke and everything that's left, dust from the naval barrage. I was talking to Basaso. Basaso was talking to Djibouti. Djibouti was talking to Nairobi. Nairobi was talking to JSOC at Bragg. JSOC at Bragg was talking to SecDef in DC. So we patch up the Somalis. It's getting dark now. There's no sounds. There's no fire. There's no nothing coming out of the hills. And basically, we don't have the ability to like go over there at night. So the sun comes up the next morning. We ended up going over the hill as as a more capable force, because now there were 6 of us. We had a guy that we thought for sure was Haroon Fazul. Looked just like him. I mean, same skin tone, and had a pair of glasses. Like, it was a lot of similarities that we thought it was him. Nobody that looked like Nabhan. And the rest of the guys were like a who's who of bad guys from around the globe. Like 2 guys with British passports, like legit British passports.
No shit.
A Yemeni, a Syrian. Like, it was this random collection of, it was exactly what we thought it was. And so we're on the radio. We've got a possible for Haroon Fazul, whatever his call sign was at the time. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to fly in an SSE team to do DNA testing and confirm. We need you to take them up to the site. And we're like, we're not doing that. And they're like, why wouldn't you do that? And I'm like, I'm not taking an FBI team that's never been to combat, never been trained, into the hills of northern Somalia where I don't know how many guys are still running around out here. Like, I had no way to confirm or deny if we'd gotten them all. I knew we had a bunch of bodies, but I had no way of knowing if we had gotten everybody. And so there's some back and forth on the radio. What we ended up agreeing on was we bagged up the guy that we thought was Haroon Fazul, and we carried him off the mountain, threw him in the back of a truck, and then drove him down to the airfield. So when they landed, all they had to do was get off the plane and deal with the possible. But yeah, so the FBI guys get off the plane. I unzip the body bag for him. They peel it back. It took them 2 seconds. They grabbed him, they rolled him up on his side, they pulled his shirt up, and he had no scar. And they said, it's not him. And we were like, what? And they're like, it's not him. I'm like, how do you know that fast that it's not him? You didn't do anything. And they go, yeah, Haroon Fazul had appendicitis. He had his appendix taken out in whatever year. He's got no scar where his appendix was removed. And we're like, damn, that quick. They just shut, like, all that for nothing, We're all proud of ourselves. So we're bummed out. We're like, all right, well, let's wrap it up. Like, the rest of those bodies, we got plenty of intel. Like, it is what it is. We're out of here. So we loaded up and flew back to Djibouti. There's a little bit of a reception there from the handful of people that did know where we were. We get to the hangar, and, all 3 of us are just covered in blood. Not our own, but I've got cuts all up and down my arms from the sharp corally rocks that we've been moving around on the ridgeline. So we looked quite a sight to people that saw us coming into the hangar that we were in. And about 5 minutes after we're there, a little Navy dude comes knocking on the door, opens the door, comes in. He says, hey, the admiral that is in charge of the base needs whoever was just involved in whatever went down to come brief him. And we're like, okay. Can you give us a few minutes, like, to clean up, like, whatever? And he's like, well, he just said as soon as possible. And we're like, okay, whatever. So let's tell him we're coming. We walk in, and, gentlemen, how you doing? Come on in and have a seat. And so we go in and we sit down. And he's like, mind you, the whole way over there, we're like, we're screwed. Like, this dude is going to flip a gasket. Like, who are you? How was I not aware of this? How did you involve my warship that I'm responsible for? Who cleared this? We're assuming no conversation has been had, and it hasn't. So he's like, look, you guys have had a pretty wild, rough 24 hours, huh? And we were like, yes, sir. Like, just waiting. And he's like, so tell me the story. Like, how did you get there? And we're like, well, and we kind of gave him the brief. He goes, that's the coolest shit I've ever heard.
That's awesome.
And Phil, who's hilarious, Phil busts out laughing, and then it's a comfy conversation. And he's like, so you guys, the 3 of you just decided you were going to go do this. And we're like, yep.